Any further ado, let's all please welcome Jason Aiken and Larry Turner.
Yay!
I was remote.
Thanks, Tyler.
Everybody has a job.
I'm the guy who's always kind of this, nutty professor type, trying to fight with the computer to get it to work So, all right, how y'all doing?
All right.
Good. It's a real honor to be here with all of you, and thanks. An honor to be here with this man, Larry, who is helping advance some slides. Don't worry, I won't be talking the whole time.
Larry!
Put my talents to use. All right, today we'd like to take a few minutes of your time to discuss SHARE, the Sasquatch Hunters Academic Research Exchange. SHARE is the collaborative vision for the future 50 years of Sasquatch research.
Can you hold that mic just a little bit closer? Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So, quick outline of what we'll be talking about. This presentation is organized in a bit of a problem-solution format. We're going to go briefly through some introductions. We'll talk about the need, the vision, the value, and the call to action, because your input and involvement is needed if this vision is to succeed. And we really do want it to succeed. All right, introductions. I'm up here with Larry Turner. Larry, do you want to take a few minutes here to introduce yourself and then?
Hi, I'm Larry Turner. I'm a metrologist. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm a field researcher with the Tillamook Forest Research Group, Bigfootology, and the Olympic Project.
All right, my name's Jason Aiken. I'm basically a software geek. I've been a technologist for the last 20 years. I'm a member of the Olympic Project as of last year, Colorado naturalist, data nerd, and so on. And I think all of us have something to bring to the table, something that we've done for the last 10, 20 years. Larry, can you tell us a little bit more about what a metrologist is and what that means?
How I suck.
I passed that a little too quick. But a metrologist is, or metrology is the science of precise measurement. It goes, there's the measurements that are basically this building here is dimensional measurement. The standards for like the original 1 inch to 1 foot is all in Boulder, Colorado, where the National Institute of Standards and Technology is. It's where the original 1 volt is. Everything is traceable back to the standard, which is an international standard from agreements between the countries, then between metric and US. And all the measurements, like for instance, for scales, they're all done in kilograms or pounds, and that transfers back to traceability back to the original standards in Boulder, Colorado. And that's what metrology is.
You invented the inch.
Well, if you really want to know, it was the Egyptians. But that was a furlong, basically an 18-inch from the forearm, from the elbow to the forearm. That was the standard measurement back then.
Larry, can you tell us why that matters? Why do we care?
Why do we care? Without metrology, there wouldn't be a standardization for measurements. A case in point is like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has certain requirements for their gauges and everything else. Pressure gauges, flow meters, electrical gauges, all have specifications plus or minus like 1%, 2%. And they have the original gauges there. My gauges are as accurate as theirs. Theirs are more precise, going out to 9 digits. The closer you get to NIST is where you get the more accuracy. And the customers demand accuracy for public safety, for one thing. NASA's another example. We're not going to want a $5 billion aircraft or spaceship crashing down without it being tested to the nth degree for not only safety of the people on the ground, but the safe operation of that spacecraft as it's going through space. The same with refineries, public safety. They're not going to be blown up if all their gauges and equipment is calibrated to a specification that either they want or what the manufacturer created for specifications. Again, anything that's tested, the equipment that I use is tested, that's traced back to NIST for precision measurements. That make sense? Lost everybody.
All right, sounds very technical. So we're both technical guys. I think that's one way to sum it up. Another thing I like to point out is the vision that we're presenting here today started out last year with a conversation over on the lawn over there. We're not necessarily representing our respective research groups, but I think this, just wanted to get that out there as a disclaimer. All right, so I wanted to share a little bit about how I suck. I'd like to start out by saying I'm not God's gift at Bigfoot or really anything. Jack of all trades. My list of human limitations goes on and on. Key takeaway here is that, like many of you, I balance the competing demands of work, family, and so on. And my ability to devote my attention to this topic is, what time remains afterward. Of course, I would prefer to be out in the field more than anything else. My focus on Sasquatch research is something I'm driven to do because my compassionate heart seeks to validate the eyewitnesses, those who've had stories. I think it's important that those stories are told, that they're captured, that they're documented, and that the people have a safe forum to do that. I also do it because I strive to honor the many people who have walked this road before. Many of the people who are here at this event, whether you've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, in some cases more than 50. And I want to honor them. Their legacy, I think, is important. I think this topic is important. And out of all the other things I could devote my time to, that's why I do this. And that's enough about me, I think, for now. But the key to this presentation is how Beachfoot 2015 sort of struck me as this example of what I would call the Bigfoot Commons. Let's go to the next one. Bigfoot Commons is exactly like the melting pot concept of the USA. I think it's what we have here is a collection of some really stunning people, some incredible talent. I think that everyone who is here on these grounds and many others that wish they could be here but aren't today have so much to contribute with whatever it is that they do. So look around you this weekend, and I think you can see it. I think Todd touched on it with his opening announcements. They've really brought together a great group of people, and from that, new connections have been built. It's allowed some new connections for people to reach out and actually talk face-to-face from different geographies, professions, backgrounds, and skill sets of all kinds. And from there, we're able to engage and build some very important relationships. So I'd like to give Todd and Diane a round of applause for doing this work.
Yeah!
And can you hit the button again there? So the bottom line here is that everyone has something to contribute, whatever that is. However, whatever it is that you do, you think, well, how can I have something to add to this? You definitely do, whatever it is, whether your background's in psychology, accounting. There's so many ways that we can map that skill set that people have that they've worked on for the last 10 or 20 years and find some way of leveraging that and doing something more. So when Larry and I first talked last year, Larry articulated this key problem statement. As a whole, we are rudderless. Larry also said, and hit the button again, I'm sorry, I got a lot of transitions, so we'll have to work through that. Some go it alone and they really never get anywhere. These words really stuck with me. It's like we were gathering at a trailhead, but we never start the hike. Or maybe some of us do start the hike and go a considerable distance, And with our group of friends, we set off on this journey together and we get pretty far, but then what? What do we do next? So we'd like to consider building the road ahead for the next 50 years of research for the future, for growth, for dialogue, and for discovery. Well, where are we now? How many decades have we had people working on this with some real significant contributions? We have works of a great many listed names. I don't need to list all of them, but certainly Sanderson, Bitternagel, Melvin, Moorhead, Coleman, Green, Krantz, Byrne, Bueller, Powell, Strain, and so many others. Too long to list. Not to have another guy last night. Many have chronicled the evidence for any to review, and yet we still seem to be operating from this position that, well, no one's paying attention, or the media portrays us wrong, or maybe we're waiting for science to pick this up and move the ball forward for us. And yet, to the broader public, despite all these great contributions, we're still searching for an unrecognized species at best. So when you look at all these many great efforts and progress right now, and the countless others that are interested in joining the cause, especially when you look at the success of many of the television shows, we really have a next generation that's going to be coming up into the fold. I think some of that's happening already. I know a great many of you focus a lot of your time and energy on giving time and attention to the kids that are here or at various events and reaching out to them and educating them, and I think that's important. There's also many PhD biologists who, once they get tenure, will kind of come out of the woodwork and start to share their interests that they've harbored for a long time. We had one here last year, and over the last year I've been interacting with another one who doesn't have tenure yet, doesn't want his name associated with this topic, but definitely incorporates it into his curriculum and into his thinking, and is willing to share a lot of information with us in terms of how we might do things different. That's all exciting. That's a strength. This community, this event, everything that you all do every day, that is commendable, and it needs to be recognized. It needs to be built on. It needs to be expanded, and we need to think about that at scale. We need to think about the legacy and where are we going to be 50 years from now? Because if we're in the same place that we are now, and people are still kind of operating under the what's easy, focus on your own thing, and the relationships that happen organically or happen with great events like this, where do you go next? All right, well, we need more. We need more evidence. I think we're out of sync here, Larry. All right, there we go, thanks. We need more communication. We need more sharing, collaboration. We need a level of process maturity. This is an iterative model where we start by taking what we have now, assessing it, and then continuing to make it better over time. So we're going to get a little bit abstract here, and then Larry's going to bring it down to the real world. So bear with me here. But we need to build on the credibility. We need to make this even better. And imagine if we took the very best from around the world, and if we collaboratively built a knowledge base, the research methods, and the message to the public that we keep asking someone else to do. What if we did that ourselves? What if we created the dialogue and we did that more formally? All right, here's you. Say you're interested in Bigfoot and you go out, you go looking for evidence, you read books, maybe you reach out to others, maybe you have some friends, you bring them out with you and share information and go from there to maybe forming a group, or you join a group that exists already. Your group may have some public outreach aspect to it. NAWAC, for example, published the Ouachita Project monograph last year, and Bob Strain presented that. All of that together would be considered your sphere of influence, sort of your immediate sphere of influence that goes outward like ripples in a pond. Next. So here's your group. Let's say your group talks to one or two other groups, just through interactions like this event or on a more formal basis. All right, so you're talking to some other groups, and then an event like this, maybe, and over time as you build up credibility and people get to know you, you get access to
The next one here with the famous researchers and interested scientists, okay? You can still see this is a little bit disjointed. So this is something that John Kirk said, and I know it's a lot of words on a slide and some of you can't see, so I'll read it. This is something he said on the 26th June 2016 Monster X podcast hosted by Gunnar Monson and Shane Corson.
Yes.
What we really seriously need is a massive united effort, dragging in everybody that we possibly can, who's willing to work within an established scientific framework, sharing data, evidence, findings, etc., and doing it collaboratively and collectively. John couldn't be here this year, but he gave me his permission to use that statement.
Cool.
All right, so yeah, click this again. So here's your group and everything else that we just talked about. And then, go ahead and advance to the next transition. A lot of animations here. This is death by PowerPoint. Can you go down? There we go. So share is the idea with share is that it's not a group. It's not a group that's just another group. The idea is that this brings it all together. Maybe this has been done before. I think there's a couple of examples I can think of. And they lost critical mass along the way. We'll talk about that. Share is, let's go to the next one. It's a cross-regional team, our research standards organization focused on mutual trust, respect, and responsibility. It's based on the idea that the integrated whole is better than the sum of its parts. Working together under the share scope, we accumulate a larger body of evidence. We stand a chance to create the standards and, with those in place, produce the highest quality evidence available. We build a community that promotes continuous learning, and it's really a vision for the next 50 years of research, because if we're still operating as we do today, we may very well be too late. We're too late for John Green already. It'll be too late for many of us at this fine event today, and it could be too late for the target species. Share involves no politics, no rivalries, no egos. It's straight up research. Share. So I want to thank all of you who have shared your stories with me over the years. This is my second time at Beachfoot. I'm very much a newcomer, and thank all of you who do so much. Whether you're Henry May recording the Yakima event, posting that in the internet, whether you're host for podcasts, whether you're out traveling around the world, sharing your audio evidence like Ron Moorhead does, whether you're an author like Peter Byrne or any of these others, whether you're appearing on podcasts, devoting your time and energy like Derek Randall's, whoever it is, you contribute a lot to this, and I thank you for that, and I think we need to do more. Where does share come from? We value credibility. Last year, Barb O'Hara presented the Bigfoot Manifesto at the very end on Saturday night. And it included this cred value statement, which means credibility bound, research focused, ethically guided, data driven. Share is an example of cred. So cred was more of a vision or a cultural statement. Share is something that we can actually execute. It's got an operational plan, and it offers some concrete and examples and a specific roadmap to action. It does everything that's laid out here by this kind of cred vision and more. The shared goal is to develop, practice, and promote leading standards for future Sasquatch research, discovery, and taxonomic recognition. Scope, beyond emulating the cred vision, is to create a secure, reliable, team-based environment. To promote constructive dialogue and repeatability, encourage critical peer review and cross-training, aggregate the best available evidence possible, promote inclusion, a scientific approach, and to develop continuous learning and accredited research. Accredited research is a pretty deep topic in itself. Larry's going to talk more about that in a few minutes, about what accreditation means and some examples of that. But we're working towards measurement and repeatability across multiple groups and key individuals. We're talking about doing something at scale. And even if it has been done before, we want to leverage all of that too, and we want to take it forward. The benefits.
would be to access a growing database of evidence for further analysis. I know many people are already working on this, and I think that there's opportunity to even work further. As someone new to the subject, and I spent many months listening to every freely available podcast that there was for pretty much the entire summer of 2014. It struck me when I first came to Beachfoot in 2015 that many people don't talk to each other or don't know about each other, and the West Coast doesn't know what the East Coast is doing in every case, and so on. And that struck me as a risk. That struck me as a bit of a problem. So we're talking about creating and using a common framework for credible evidence gathering and data interchange. The benefits would also be that we can collaborate with others while maintaining our own individual groups and individual identities, integrity, confidence around locations and eyewitnesses if that information doesn't need to be shared. And to learn from the ongoing process maturity, to be able to tweak it and correct it as time goes on, to lead to some new efficiencies in terms of how we gather the evidence, how we document it, how we report it, to participate in meaningful exercises, meaningful exchanges and thought leadership, to leverage what's there already, to promote the offers that are good for newcomers who need to learn about the subject. You know, what's our Bigfoot 101 class? A lot of us can answer that question, but if you're a newcomer, where do you go to get that information? We also want to promote education for the public and for newcomers. I think that's key. Well, how do we do it? At this stage, it's just beginning, okay? We're talking about going beyond the trailhead, beyond the hiking trail here, to start clearing a road, and how we do this is really going to depend on the interest that comes out of the call to action at the end, and we're interested in taking this solid foundation and to build the road forward. It's built on cultural change. We want to go beyond territorialism. We want to go beyond holding information close to the vest toward a vision of aggregating the best evidence, the best people, the best tools, the best options for continuous learning, and to develop a program to accredit newcomers focused on the best known tactics for evidence gathering and reporting. We simply can get started. We already have the technology. We already have some really great people. Take the years of interest in the subject that we have just on these grounds alone, add that all together. How do we leverage that? How do we move forward? What sort of best practices can we apply? We have the people. We can still do better in terms of the tools that we're using, the documentation that we're creating, the data mining, the potential for patterns, maybe working towards mobile reporting. I know the BFRO has an app that you can use already to get reports on. There's other opportunities there to, I think, really work on our ethics and work on how we talk to each other, and build the community, build the culture that we want. We can also develop the process maturity based on standards, collaboration, and crowdsourcing. And we'll talk about the value of that and what that has actually done. Gunnar Monson, founder of Sasquatch Coffee, host of Monster X Radio, one of the sponsors of this event, talks about cooperation, not competition. He's also the lead investigator for the Tillamook Forest Research Group, a member of the Olympic Project and Bigfootology as well. Collaboration creates opportunities. It's really the road forward for appropriate knowledge sharing. It can promote better dialogue, and it can help drive all kinds of innovation. I think I want to stay on this other one for just a few minutes if I could. So we stand a better chance of moving the ball forward if we can evolve. If we can look at how we work and how we conduct ourselves, and we really look at what we want to do going forward. And we do that already, I think, as individuals. Many great individuals that are here do that on a daily basis. But what can we do if we do that at scale? And you might be saying, okay, I get it, but this will never work, and it's been done before, or I've contributed in different ways, and I want to hear those stories. I want to hear about the territorialism and learn more about what's happened in the past, and learn from those experiences and find a positive way around it. And if there's something different that we can do to make it make it happen. I think we can give that a reboot and try again. Many of us look at that and, again, would rather spend our limited time devoted to the subject out in the field. And I'm right there with you. And truly, that's much more fun. Groups like the Olympic Project, the NAWAC, they're cataloging and in many cases publishing and sharing or presenting their findings, managing all kinds of public outreach, relic hominid inquiry, and other respected cryptozoology groups or channels for publishing academic papers, and that's all good too, but is it enough? More importantly, even if we aren't directly responsible for the public or the scientific community and how they take us, how they take the subject, I should say, are we not partially responsible if we don't really look at how we're doing and try to do something different to try to manage that message? In concrete terms, this would start by organizing a committee, a steering committee around the vision. We build out the standard operating procedures for a wide range of topics, get those vetted, reviewed, approved, make those available to all. We train on the procedures and ensure that they're followed. We focus on the evidence which meets the standard procedure and continue to iterate, improve, and refine our body of standards, training material, and evidence. This model works. And if you look at how global banks work, for example, huge global corporations, they have to do this for regulatory compliance reasons. They also do it because they can leverage efficiencies. If you're the last research analyst for macroeconomics and the impact of the tsunami on Japan, if you're the last one to get your research out there, it's already old news, okay? And so in a survey led by Infotrends in 2016 calculated that the average enterprise organization spends $800,000 a year annually on systems like this. So there are some significant investments going on in corporate America. That spend is growing by 7 to 13% depending on the industry. Scientists don't have that kind of budget. So what do? Well, a story I really liked over the last year that came out was this Homo naledi story. Lee Berger, the paleoanthropologist responsible for the find, went to social media in 2013. He said, "Dear colleagues, I need the help of the whole community." And he needed that for a couple of reasons. First of all, the site that he had found was very hard to get to. He needed women and petite researchers, people who were familiar with caving and not claustrophobic, to get down a 50-foot tunnel in the pitch black of this cave that was only like 11 inches in diameter. And then once you get on the other side, then it opens up and you gotta climb a wall, and then once you're 20 or 30 feet up, there's another tunnel, and then I'm not sure how long that goes, but then 10 feet beyond that was this cave with all these skeletons. And in 2015, just 2 years later, he had 1,500 fossils and 1 new species documented. And that's significant. Think about that. 1,500 fossils and 1 new species. It still took 2 years. That's more fossils than the last 90 years in all of South Africa. The discovery process, according to the typical anthropology channels, typically takes around 15 years to catalog and publish a find of this scope. He didn't want to wait 15 years. So he went to social media. They did 3D scans of the bones. They had a lot of different people assisting them, volunteers, interns, and so on, using open source, crowdsource type applications, one called morphosource.org. It's basically a data repository for all these 3D bone scans. And that allowed them to get all this information out there, make it public, develop some peer review, and get everything documented. It's still highly controversial because this type of process, this type of approach has never been done before. And there's still some concern from the anthropologists, like we went too fast and we're not sure, and it'll be debated for some time. There's countless other examples of this type of model and how it works in software development and elsewhere. And here we're going to see some of these examples. Anyone fly a plane to get here? Anyone drive a vehicle? Okay, these are some of the standards organizations that made sure that that vehicle operated safely. And that's industry getting together, defining the standards, saying, okay, these are the specs we're going to follow.
And if they can do it and they're all competing in the business world, I think we can do it too. Let's see some more examples. This is Oasis. They are, like the W3C, responsible for a lot of the information science or sort of technical standards behind the internet and how people manage content and security and other things. That's my geek space. And let's see Larry's. All right, OECD, that's another one I'd like to mention. This is a research organization. Their customers tend to be governments around the world, non-governmental organizations and so on. They, based on trends that come up in the world, put together packages of information for their customers to say, here's what you should do, or at least here's more information on this to help inform their policy decisions. All right, and now we're going into Larry's geek speak. All right, awesome. Put my eyes on here. All right. This is another one of the accredited organizations, NAVLAB. NAVLAB is the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. It provides an unbiased third-party test and evaluation to accredited laboratories in their respective fields for international scientific standards. NAVLAB is compliant with ISO 17011. That's an international standard that's for scientific labs and deemed to be technically competent. In many cases, suppliers and regulatory authorities will not accept the test calibration results from any other lab that's not accredited. And two examples include calibration and product testing.
Plug in your computer.
Your battery is pretty low.
We need power. And then the NAVLAB scope, as you can see here, is pretty broad. Laboratories also use an ISO IEC 1705, which is another implement to a quality system aimed at improving the ability to consistently produce valid results. It's also the basis for accreditation from an accreditation body. It sets the standards about competence. Accreditation is simply a formal recognition to demonstrate of that competence. The prerequisite for a laboratory to become accredited to have a documented quality management system in place. SHARE is focused on taking these best principles and building out a body of standards to help bring about quality and evidence, communication, tools, continuous learning, and people. All right, thanks, Larry. We'll be hearing more from Larry in a few minutes. I'm a fan of many podcasts, including Star Talk. It's one that Neil deGrasse Tyson puts out, and he'll interview NASA scientists and talk to them about how they got started and what they do. So they're NASA scientists. They have to follow all these principles.
Well, one thing that they'll do is they'll share what their inspiration is. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's actually programs like Star Trek, okay? So whatever the inspiration is, it can be tapped into. It doesn't change what they do, but then it leads to human miracles of achievement. And I think there's many examples to draw from. And really, whatever our own inspiration is or where we want to see the subject head to, also doesn't necessarily matter. What does matter are all the great people that are part of it. They make all the difference, and together we produce the message, create the awareness, inspire the future, and can make this safe, fun, scientific, and worthwhile. There are, Bob Giblin was, I had the opportunity to meet him here last year. He said it's not, what matters is what you do, it's the legacy that you leave behind. And I thought that was really, really an interesting statement. This is about us. It's about the people. And we can make the difference. We own this already. So this is really a message to, all of us to really step it up and to try to do something different together. And as Elvis sings, we need a little less conversation and a little more action. All right, well, how do we do it? We start by driving the value. We face this challenge head on. We really look at this for what are we doing differently over the next 50 years. We're talking about changing how we do things to elevate what we're doing and to ensure that we're taken seriously. When it comes to change, we all know that that's hard. No one really likes change. That's part of our psychology. That's normal, and I have to work with that all the time at work, especially when they're spending millions of dollars and they're not really happy about having to spend that money, and then they're like, well, what do you mean we got to change? What do you mean we can't use Microsoft Word for everything? So that's just part of my own experience, but I don't think that we're any strangers to challenge. We're chasing one of the most elusive species probably ever. They are incredibly intelligent, and we're still out there devoting our time and resources, limited time and finances to that. And really it comes down to, well, what's the goal? You know, does it really matter if any of us are individual experts? I had the opportunity to see an expert around metadata and library science stuff back in April. A man named Dr. David Weinberger. He's currently associated with Harvard's Berkman Center for Internet and Society. And he was talking about the paradigm of knowledge and how it's really changed from this kind of paper-based mindset where everything had to go through these formal channels of approval to get published. And you would read a newspaper or you would read a book and it would go through these formal channels, and that was where we got our knowledge. And that concept has really changed, especially with the internet. So with the internet, you do have a lot of noise out there, like the Kardashians and other things, you know, what Justin Bieber is doing, Pokemon Go, all this. But you also have a resident expert in almost every forum. Anyone here familiar with what Reddit is? Okay, so not too many, but it's a way that anyone can go on the internet and ask a question. And then what happens is people log in, usually, you know, starts out with a bunch of 14-year-olds making a bunch of nasty jokes and leads to these parallel threads and so on. But in almost any topic, a resident expert will show up and actually give a pretty informative answer. And it's a way that a lot of people share information. And there's many other ways of doing that. And that's a good example of what I mean by expertise doesn't scale. But you know, you'll get hundreds of replies from people who aren't experts and maybe one or two replies from people who know what they're talking about. And the other aspect, this is particularly applicable to business management. This all roads lead to Rome concept, where one expert in terms of, you know, is the leader and they are responsible for making all decisions. And that model is just out of date. Business managers don't want to be the one to make all the decisions. They will surround themselves with really smart people and trust them to make the decisions, and then, you know, benefit from specialization and delegation and so on to be more efficient. So what we're talking about is driving the value in our context to create the dialogue and break this net open and own the message. We want to enable ownership. We want to include and guide newcomers. We want to drive impactful results. One example is if you think about a standard operating procedure on track casting. I had the opportunity to learn about track casting in more detail from David Ellis with the September 2014 public expedition that the Olympic Project hosted. And you look at all the technical details that go into that require tracking experience, require knowledge of what material to use, how to mix it. It's important that people are trained to follow the best practices of that procedure and to get that documented, and then to go beyond that to conduct in-field audits to make sure that people can actually execute it successfully. It's one thing to watch someone else do it who's done it 100 times. It's another thing when you're trying to go back home and test out the process on some raccoon tracks, right, Aurora? You remember. Okay, so we accumulate these track casts, and if we can do that consistently across time and across geography, we can really have an apples-to-apples comparison there, and that enables further study that will generate some additional attention. Larry, you come up and talk a little bit more.
All right, we're going to talk about audio, kind of my wheelhouse here. And we're going to talk about, how many people know what an SOP is?
Because of you.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Those that don't, it's basically a standard operating procedure. This SOP is going to be one about audio, and the need was derived after me going to the Olympic project, meeting David Ellis, and him and I seem to be speaking the same language. After acquiring a high quality audio recorder, was later discovered that I was doing one thing one way, David was doing the thing his way. We got together and came up with this SOP on setting up our audio recorders for a specific reason. One's for the transference of file, a 28-minute file with 64 meg. The other reason is for clarity of the audio and the best sound quality. And it's set this in the settings so that no matter what file was being sent to David, it was always the same file consistently in the audio setup parameters. Next slide. These here are the setups that we do between our groups and a couple other groups. These are the exact setups that we use. And right here, this MP3 and 320 is the highest quality for sound. There's another setting right below that's 128K, and if you set that, you can get a longer recording. There's been argument in the past that I could get more recording time out in the field, but if you have it at 128K, you've got signal degradation and distortion, and therefore the sound quality is not the same. All these things here, mic power off, low cut off, pre-record off, auto mode off. This here is the amplitude or part of the recording part at 24 dB, and there's the file size right here. And some will go 28 depending on the different one, but basically it's pretty close to 64 and in stereo, and then the sample rate. And then I'll show you what's going on with the signal between 128K, which a lot of people like to try to do, and 320. You can see here, this is the peaks going on. This is here the center, this is the fundamental, this is the center frequencies, and these are fundamentals. You'll notice right in here at this 128K, there's, if you count the bars, going across this logarithmic scale, you'll see a little bit of signal distortion right in here. Now look at the amplitude here. This is at 320K, the clarity of the signal, and how it doesn't degrade. And that's one of the main reasons, the quality of the signal, or the quality of the recording. This was put out by Audacity, but this increases the more bit rates for us to sample as we're looking at it through Sonic Visualizer. It's very important. If it was set up over here, we would miss a lot. As you can see, we got more information to take a look at right here. And what are the next steps?
I just have a few more slides. This one has a lot of information on it. One of the very next steps is to create a board of directors, interested people who want to review the bylaws, get them finalized, how this is going to work going forward, how are we going to define and approve, what processes are we going to use, these types of things. How is this going to be managed? We also, for those who don't want to be a part of the board of directors but have some specific knowledge, whether it's photography or videography, track casting, other evidence collection tactics, whether it's interviewing eyewitnesses, if you're a psychologist or if you have a lot of experience in that field with law enforcement, whether it's normalizing databases if you're a technology person, let's include all of these different voices, all of these different skill sets, and instead of having that whole separation between our professional lives and our interest in Sasquatch research, let's bring it all together and let's actually leverage it and make something happen with it. We also need some technical infrastructure and tools, and I will be happy to demonstrate one example of such a system and what's possible. anytime this weekend. I would like to try to do that with a few people, and I can show you one example in terms of, if you're interested in really seeing what that looks like. But if we can take the draft bylaws that we already have, and we've already started to share that around with some members of the Olympic Project and the Tillamook Forest Research Group, and try to, some others here in the Pacific Northwest to generate discussion. We want to promote that similar message. The folks that I'm talking to in Colorado were initially a little resistant, and then discussions more recently are, this actually makes sense. And I think, Jason, you might be onto something, and it isn't even my original idea. It's just a matter of getting people used to that idea and starting to actually talk about it further and do something with it that's a little more concrete. So after we establish the board, finalize the bylaws, we get the SOPs, we get a system, and then we start making tools to assist your research. I was talking to Chris Spencer today with what he does, posting PDF files on Facebook with his field reports and his audio files. We also have a volume of, I think Joe Bielart's field notes are also out there online. There's a lot of models to draw from and to look at, and what's the best way of doing field notes, and how do we want to do that going forward? The AIBR, the Alliance of Independent Bigfoot Researchers, they have a lot of information and SOPs out there too that we can look at, and then we have a very significant starting point right there. All right, last slide. Well, I guess there's one more after this, the conclusion. Thank you slide. But let's this is the call to action. This is in order to make this work, we need to look at other visionaries, other people who have really faced significant challenge in their lives. And I like to, it might be a little cheesy, but this quote from Helen Keller really speaks to me. I'm only one, but I am still one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. So this is an invitation to make this yours, to reach out and to participate, to add your skills, whatever they may be, to add your experience, to honor the legacy, all the good work that's already been done, to take that and really create the future that we want. So my email address is up there. I also am happy to coordinate in any way, shape, or form to make it happen. Todd Neese created a Facebook group called Sasquatch Hunters Academic Research Exchange. That's another way to participate. I also have the demonstration that I offered earlier. Are there any questions? Any comments?
Okay. Why is this important? I mean, can you explain to people why? The idea is it's a very fragmented field right now, so it's kind of pulling things together and offering basically standards and procedures of collecting and processing evidence. Because one of the questions what would somebody do if they didn't know, if they found something, where do they take it and how do they process it?
All right, so I'll try to paraphrase. All right, so the question was, why is this important? And we see that today the field is very disjointed. And if someone were to find something, how do they know what to do, where to go? Let's say you're driving a logging truck and you crash into a Bigfoot. What do? You're instantly perhaps fearful. You could lose your job if you go to your boss with this. Are the men in black going to show up? Do you really even know what to do, or are you just like, what the hell is that, and keep going on, with your day? That's a very good question, and I think defining that question really, that's the kind of answer that I would look to the board of directors to start to produce the standard operating procedures for. I had a great discussion last year with John William Hammer. He had, if it's injured, I would do this. If it's dead, I do this. He had, if I catch it alive, I do this. He had this whole set of, procedures already, I think, in his head, and maybe he had discussed with some others, and I forget the acronym that he used. It's in my notes from last year, but a lot of these ideas and these great thoughts are out there. but they're not always easy to find. And I know there's a lot of great websites that have anthologized a lot of the research that's out there. They need to be recognized, and we need to have more hubs and hubs of hubs that point to all this information to organize that. Certainly, I think there's a lot of great web presence. When I first looked into this, I went and I learned a lot from the BFRO site and spent maybe 6 hours there, and then just read, for years afterward. Good question. Thanks, Gunnar. Any others? All right, well, let's go to the last slide then. I think I can do this one. Okay, so I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Todd and Diana. I also would like to thank my wife and family. I've been dragging them along for a week now through the Pacific Northwest, and they're first timers to Beachfoot. I have a lot of skeptics in my family. And it's also my wife's birthday, so happy birthday.
Yay, birthday!
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Let's hear a round of applause.
Yay!